If you're watching this video, it's probably because you're a landscape photographer and you've just bought a FUJIFILM X-T5, as I have just done. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I intend to set it up for use as a landscape photography camera. I'm outside my local camera store. I'm just about to go in and buy a Fuji X-T5. So the first thing I'm going to do is just switch on the camera, and because I'm English, I'm going to set for English. I'm going to set the time as that. Daylight settings are, I think, on at the moment, and it is, yeah. Month day, we are in 24, month we are in the 5th month. Right, it's asking if I want to acquire the app. Now I already have the app, so I'm going to switch that on. And I'm going to add a camera. It's on. Bluetooth pairing is in progress. Press and hold down the back DSP backspace button. Select pairing. And we are looking for an X-T5. Pairing complete. New firmware is available, so let's grab the firmware. It's going to download the firmware and wants to join the network. So it then sends over the firmware from the phone over to the camera. Now you need to make sure that you have a full battery when you do this. Now I've charged my battery, so I'm okay. So the firmware will take a little bit of time. So that's the firmware updated. So the first thing that I would do when I'm setting this camera up is to adjust the diopter, which is an adjustment so that what you see through the camera and what the camera sees are both sharp. So obviously the camera, when it's in focus, is sharp, but if, like me, you have short-sightedness, what I see through the camera doesn't look sharp. So to adjust this, you pull the diopter ring out just very gently, focus on something until it's sharp, and then adjust the diopter so it looks sharp. And once it's sharp to your eyes, press that button back in, and now you're good to go. The next thing that I'm going to do is set up to record images to the 2 cards that I've put in. Now, one of the great things in Fuji is that you can record a RAW file and a JPEG file, and Fuji have all these great film simulations. But because this is going to be a landscape photography camera, and one that, if there is a failure of one card, I still want the other card to be 100% a RAW file, I'm going to show you how to set this up. So if you go into the menu, the first thing that you'll see is image size, which I suggest that you record large. One of the advantages of having this 40 megapixel sensor is you can make really large images. And the next thing is, out of the box, it's set up for N, normal and RAW. I'm just going to change that to RAW. And what I'm going to do then is going to go into the wrench. I'm going to save data setup. Now, out of the box, it's set up for sequential. What that means is it fills up one card and then moves on to the other. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that to backup, so it records each image twice, one on each of the cards. So that's set up. Good. Now, you may want to choose differently. As I said, the JPEGs out of the Fujifilm camera are great, and one of the great things when you've set up the camera to work with your phone is you can transfer, or get, as the new firmware calls it, you can get JPEG files from your camera straight onto your phone, and you can share them straight away. You may want to go that route, but that's fine. That's not going to be what I'm going to do. So the files in this new Fujifilm X-T5 and this 40 megapixel sensor are going to take up a lot of disk space. And my experience with the X-T3, which is this one, which I'm recording the X-T5 on, is their lossless compressed RAW files are just as good as the uncompressed ones. So I'm going to go into the menu. I'm going to go to RAW to lossless compressed. So the next thing I'm going to do is going to change the maximum ISO. Now, out of the box, Fujifilm have three sort of settings where you can set a minimum and a maximum ISO. And the way you find it is if you go down to the camera menu and ISO auto setting. It's currently set at auto 3, and if you look at it, the default setting is the base setting is 120 is a base setting of ISO 125, but the maximum sensitivity is 12,800. That's no good for landscape photography, so I'm going to switch that to auto 1, which has got a maximum sensitivity of 800. What that means is if you're in a fully automatic or a partially automatic setting on your camera, so you're either letting the camera set your ISO or your shutter, or alternatively your ISO and your aperture, or your aperture and your shutter, it will adjust the ISO to a maximum level of 800, and then it will change one of the other variables. The next thing I'm going to do is set up back button focusing. Now, normally out of the camera, when you begin to press the shutter release down, the camera will try and take focus using their autofocus. When you're doing landscape photography, you want to set up the focus and then forget about it, and you don't want to change that when you press the shutter button. So what you can do is you can use one of the buttons on the back of the camera to take focus, and you need to switch off the focus using the shutter. So I'll show you how to do that. Firstly, you take out, you go down to the wrench, and you go to button dial setting, and you go down to shutter AF, and you want to switch that off. So now I put the camera out of focus. If I press the shutter, it doesn't take focus. So now we want to use one of the buttons on the back of the camera to set up back button focusing. Now, this is a difference between the X-T3 and the X-T5. In the X-T3, there were two buttons on the back of the camera, one which was auto exposure lock and one was auto focus lock. But the auto focus lock button has disappeared now in the X-T3, and it's become the Q button. It used to be here. But what you can do is you can capture focus using the AF on. So is that in focus now? I think it is. I squeeze back out there. So now you have back button focus. Because now what I'm going to do is talk about this circular ring here. At the moment it's set up for film simulation, and because we're not going to be using the JPEGs, I'm not going to be using the film sim or want to get access to the film simulation too often. If I pick the right one, you've got the white balance, and that is useful. And the up button has got photometry, which is useful, but I don't think I'm going to use that button for it. And if you go down, you get performance rating. Now, I want to set it up slightly differently, and the way you do that is if you hold the display back button down for a few seconds, you can assign individual buttons to functions that you may want to use, and I'll show you which ones I'm going to use. So this one, which was the power boost button, I'm going to change that to, if I can find it, is focus area. And so now, when I press the down button, I can move the the focus point for the camera, which is very useful when you're out in the field. So that's there now. Currently this button's set up for white balance. I'm going to leave that to be white balance. The next thing I'm going to want is a 2-second timer, a 3-second timer. And rather than using this button for film simulation, I'm going to use it for shutter release. Self-timer. And there it is, self-timer. So I've got my self-timer, I've got my white balance, and I've got my focal point. The last button that I'm going to assign here, I've got it set up for photometry, but what I do is I want to put the focus check on it. So I'm going to go to FM4 and go up and put focus check. And now I've got that focus check lock on. When I press the button, it jumps up and you can check your close focus. The last thing that I'm going to set up is the screen at the back. What I want to do is take off some of the information and put different information on. And if I can do this, at the moment I can tell that we're in aperture priority. We've got ISO at base level 160. I can change my aperture here, and that's changing the shutter speed, which is all good. But I want to put some different information in here. I don't really need to know that it's in boost mode. This information up here tells me that I am recording RAW, which I can switch on and off, and it shows me how many images that I have. But if I go into the menu, and if I go to screen setup, and you go to display custom setting, and you get a range of settings that you can turn on and off your screen. You may want a framing guideline, which will show you rule of thirds, etc. Focus frame, yes. Focus indicator. I probably want the distance to where the focal point is. I definitely want the histogram. Okay, let's see what that looks like. So now I have a histogram. It tells me that I'm using the Chrome standard film simulation, which I'm not really, but it's just that's what you're seeing on the screen, and it's not too busy. You do have a exposure compensation indicator over here. There's one other thing that I want to set up, but it's not on the one of the dials here. I don't necessarily want it on all of the time, but that's an electronic level. Now on the X-T3 you can assign that front wheel, but it doesn't look like I can do that in the X-T5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign the back wheel to be switching on the electronic level, because I'm not currently using that wheel. So let's see if I can find it. It's that one there, and electronics level. Let's see if that works. If you press it once, the level comes on. You can see that there. Press it twice and you get both the absolute and relative levels. So here the camera is horizontal but facing downwards, and then if I turn it up, and that is, the camera is level as well as the absolutely vertical, and that's really important if you're going to do panoramas. So there you go, that's the first go with this setting. It should be just what you need, at least as a first go, until you get used to the X-T5, and you may change up some of those items, particularly assigning different buttons to different functions. Those are the ones that I find most useful as a landscape photographer. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please give it a thumbs up, maybe think about subscribing, and why not join me on another video at another time. So thanks for watching, and until the next one, bye for now.